yesterday's explosive, dynamic episode of Gotham. So if you love Gotham, and I know you do...
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, spoiler alert. Thank you for ruining my perfectly set up sentence. That was an awful laugh. So, enjoy our music, and we will be back with Gotham. Welcome back, everybody. So yes, yesterday was a very explosive, very jaw-dropping, very frustrating episode of Gotham. I threw my phone across the room. My eyes dropped. Yes, my eyes dropped.
Your eyes dropped.
Yes, that's how explosive and confusing it was.
Your eyes literally popped out of their sockets and they hit the carpet.
See, I was more upset at the ending to this episode of Gotham than I was the other night watching, Detroit Lions get screwed over by the refs again. And that says everything. So yes, very explosive.
Very.
I know I messaged you halfway through the episode, and you weren't even watching it at this point, and all I said was, those bastards.
Yeah, I was actually watching the Muppets with my wife at that point.
Of course you were.
Well, you know what? I have to have some family time.
So you watched the Muppets.
I've watched the Muppets.
Was it worth it?
No.
Muppets fail.
Which breaks my heart because I am a pretty big Muppet fan.
Jim Henson's time is done.
Jim Henson's been dead for 20 years.
I don't care. That's why his time is done.
Jim Henson, I miss you so much. Okay,
the
anyways,
Muppets just aren't Elmo-y enough anymore.
Hey, let's not bring Elmo up. That, monster's been banned from my house.
Because he tickles, he laughs, and he thinks he's a baker.
And he talks in the third person.
So does Captain Fizz.
Yeah, okay, but whatever.
So anyways, I don't know what to say about the episode. It was phenomenal.
The last laugh, it was called. So that should have been, some ill foreboding, right there.
Yes. Basically, last episode, I made a prediction that the Joker wasn't so much a person, but more of an ideology. And I've never been more right and more mad at myself for being right ever.
It's funny because the showrunners have, physically have went off and said almost the exact same thing.
Yeah.
For those people who aren't aware, at the end of this episode, which again was called The Last Lap, Jerome is killed by Theo.
Yes, the person that they have made us believe ever since he was first introduced was the Joker, is now dead.
And see, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, those bastards. I was so mad about it. But then I thought about it because when they went off and first introduced Jerome, and, season 1 where, the twist at the end where he becomes very Joker-ish, I got really mad because I didn't want, it to be such a cut and dry explanation as to where the Joker came from. And so in the end, while I was mad that Jerome died, I was happy because this means that he wasn't the Joker and that they can completely mess around with the storyline with the Joker. In fact, I'm just going off the Bruce Heller, who is one of the showrunners for Gotham, went up and said that they had planned this whole thing with Jerome before they even started season 1. And so Jerome was never supposed to be the Joker. They wanted to go off in much as Gotham is going to be the explanation how Bruce Wayne eventually becomes Batman, and what leads Jim Gordon up to becoming the Commissioner. They're also going to go along the lines of doing a long explanation as to the origins of the Joker. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see multiple different people go off and appear with different Joker-like symptoms, I suppose you could call it.
Well, yeah,
because as they explained it here, is that Joker had to come up with some of the ideas for his persona from somewhere, and so the explanation is that Jerome went off and started this. If at the very end of this episode, you see, I believe it's like 4 or 5 different individuals, from like a little boy who must have been like 8 or 9 to a grown man sitting in a bar, all mimicking Jerome's laugh.
Yeah, epically, I might add. I think the best scene though would be right near the end, where you got the 2 guys stabbing the old lady or old man in the back alley while laughing and then stabbing each other. Classic Joker, esque, behavior. Well, and it was unique. I understand the whole reasoning of killing off Jerome. Am I a little upset on it? Yes. Do I believe they wasted a lot of energy into a guy who it turned out to not be the Joker? I think in a way they did waste energy. They wasted a lot of storyline, but at the same point, they created not just one storyline out of Jerome, but as upwards of 6. One of them, I hope they never go.
Well, it'd be very interesting because now we're going to go off and we're going to see the effects of that. And I just want to go back to a prophecy that Jerome's father, Sirio, went off and made just before Jerome kills him.
The blind fortune teller.
The blind fortune teller that that we discovered in season 1 is Jerome's father. He goes off and he says, "You will be a curse upon Gotham. Children will wake from sleep screaming at the thought of you. Your legacy will be death and madness." Now, I remember upon hearing that, thinking, okay, Jerome is the Joker. I totally was like, okay, and then at the end they kill him, and I just like, ugh.
See, and okay, when they panned on Jerome's face at the very end, I believe I'm probably the only one that got this impression that maybe Jerome isn't actually dead, and the whole curse thing, it just kind of, really kind of emphasizes the point that maybe Jerome isn't dead, that maybe there's a possibility he comes back, that, it's just this weird, thing that just happens to make you think.
Brian Heller says he's dead.
Yeah, well, this is the guy who refused to comment whether he was the Joker or not.
And so, it's interesting because comicbook.com went off and interviewed them, and they asked about the question about whether or not Barbara might become a version of the Joker. And he went off and he said that it is 100% probable that they might go down that route. And because, if you look at Barbara, at the very end, Theo goes off and makes some comment about the way that Jerome did things. And Barbara says, that she thought he was onto something there. And she spent, at least a little bit of time with him. So there's possibility that she could pick up some of the Joker traits.
See, I like Barbara, okay? And I like the path that they're taking Barbara down. Do I believe that they need to emphasize this by putting her down the same pathway as the Joker? No. Barbara is a separate, unique entity than the Joker. By giving her such a very important, very well-known label, really destroys what Barbara actually is.
Well, the idea of having a female Joker isn't necessarily even a new idea. There is a alternative universe that DC experimented with, where what if Bruce had died instead of his parents? In that case, what we see is that his father actually becomes Batman, but his mother becomes the Joker.
See, I'm not against a female being Joker. I think it's a very, doable, scenario. I just don't believe that Barbara should be the Joker.
And I don't think she necessarily. Well, I do think that they're doing some interesting stuff with Barbara right now.
Yeah, which is why I don't believe that they should make her the Joker, or the Barbara.
The Barbara. Or she's become such a big star. We have to call her the Barbara.
Yeah. Well, you look at her maniacal. She's very, very clever. She's very cunning. She's very, she understands her standing. The power she has. But I don't believe she is the maniacal psychopath that the Joker potentially is.
I don't know. She's very manipulative, but at the same time, she's very easy to manipulate.
Yeah, so she's not exactly Joker-esque. I love her character. I love what they've done with her.
I'm very curious about what they're going to do with her, actually. Because we see at the beginning of this episode that she and Tabitha are, kind of have a bit of a relationship going on. And Theo actually goes off and talks to Barbara about it, and go off and brings up how Tabitha is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very sensitive, very...
Yeah, very closed off.
I don't know, it's, she's very, I don't know what it is, but I can't remember exactly. But, I found it very interesting, just the relationship we actually see between Tabitha and Theo in this episode. There's a conversation that Theo is having with the mayor's assistant. I think it's the assistant mayor or whatever. And, the assistant mayor goes off and asks Tabitha, to spill some beans about Theo. And she goes off and says something along the lines that,
he's very good in bed.
He's really good in bed. And afterwards you see kind of Theo go off and say something to Tabitha. And she kind of brushes him off and walks off, and you kind of think, okay, was she being serious, or was she completely going for shock value?
Yeah, and then when you kind of see a little bit of a relationship blooming between Barbara and Theo, and you have Tabitha in the background
watching this,
so watching and almost sulking, but at the same point, daggers in the eye.
Exactly, and so I'm kind of looking at this as maybe Barbara is not going to be as far gone as we think she's going to be, because if you look at it, almost every one of the other maniacs, are dead now. I think only that big, goon is left. I think other than of course Barbara, and so I'm kind of curious, how long is she gonna fit into Theo and Tabitha's plans before they go off and kill her off? Because at this point, Theo used Jerome to go off and make himself into a hero for Gotham, just so to go to the next step in his master plan.
Yeah, and I definitely think Barbara is, forgive the pun, but playing the field.
And absolutely, but who's really playing who here? Who's really in charge? Is it Theo or is it Barbara?
I hate to say this, I like the character of Theo, but I really don't think Theo is playing Barbara. Barbara knows exactly what she's doing, exactly what she wants, and it's a play for survival. She knows that to make sure that she survives, especially after seeing what he did to Jerome, that she needs to make sure that Theo stays happy, because if Theo's happy, she stays alive.
But at the same time, Barbara is, I think, probably a bigger part of Theo's plan for Gotham than any of the other maniacs were. I honestly think that the other maniacs were simply there to go off and get Theo to the point where he would be seen as being a hero to Gotham. And now, they're all gone. And now he can, go on the next step of his master plan.
Oh, I definitely agree. I don't see a death in Barbara's future as of yet. But, then again, I didn't see a death in Jerome's future, either.